What's up, everybody? I'm here in my Aussie farmer shirt. My friends used to call these flannelettes. And we're going to look at Antares, another bright star. So this is the final of the 4 royal stars. After this, I'm going to cover Gemma and Spica and maybe one more. I can't remember. I think there might be another one I want to look at. But I'll cover a couple more after this because I'm having fun doing these actually. And yeah, Antares. So this is the last of the bright royal stars, the stars of extreme fame, extreme power, and he's probably the worst as well. Aldebaran is the best, followed by Regulus, followed by Fomalhaut, followed by Antares. Now that doesn't mean that Antares is the least powerful. In fact, a lot of the people that we think that we see as being famous and successful, they have a strong Antares. So I've actually got a lot of examples today, and not off the top of my head, but I'll go through my program and be like, oh yeah, another one, and this is one, and that's one. And of course they overlap because the 4 royal stars, they're in squares to each other. So if one's on an angle, usually they're all in an angle to a certain extent, but one of them will be more powerful than all the others. So Antares is the heart of the Scorpion. Let's start there. There's just so much information to say, and it's been so long since I've studied it. I've forgotten what the best way to learn is. So, but anyway, it's the heart of the Scorpion. It's opposite Aldebaran within like 2 arc minutes. It's bright and red. And I talked about this in the Aldebaran video, that Antares and Aldebaran, or sorry, not the stars, but the constellations, Taurus and Scorpio, are the 2 of the most notable constellations in the sky. And you'll notice that even if you're not even a sky watcher, you will have noticed, looking up in the sky at night, that at one time of the year you see Orion, and at the other time of the year you see Scorpio, because they're so prominent. If you miss them, something's going wrong. You know, if you've missed them, there's a big problem up here. You know, somebody's not paying attention. So they're huge constellations. And if you haven't seen them yet, just go outside and look up, and you will see one of them. You know, the moment you see a big constellation, and you'll feel it in your chest that, wow, all these stars, they're connected. You got it. That's Scorpio. Of course, you know Orion. I haven't met a single person who doesn't know Orion. So, and Orion is linked with Aldebaran. So these 2 stars are extremely important. Both of those stars are connected with America. So that's why people with Antares and Aldebaran, we see them as the most successful and celebrated people these days, because this is the era of the US. Pardon me. So, why is Antares the worst of the royal stars? Oh, pardon me. Antares is the least easy of the royal stars, and in that sense, he's the worst. A bit like Fomalhaut. Fomalhaut's also not so easy. Fomalhaut people, let me get a drink, but they're usually not born into an easy situation. Fomalhaut people, they end up there after their life, and sometimes even not until the end of their life with Fomalhaut. The other thing with Fomalhaut actually is that it can give people only daughters or no children at all. So I know a couple of guys with 4 daughters So I can guess that probably both of them have formula. And yeah, anyway, what else was I going to say? So, yep, Antares. So yeah, it's less easy. Antares even more so than Fomalhaut is less easy because Antares is military. Antares is about violence. It's about injustice, violence, difficulties, risk, crime, definitely crime. If you see Antares somewhere in a chart, there's two things that the person will skirt the bounds of, and that will be crime or kind of addiction, alcohol, drugs, that sort of thing. Those are the two extremes that they'll be linked with. And I haven't fully understood why the alcohol and the drugs sort of thing, but maybe this is because, and they'll of course be very sexual. That's without it. That's without a doubt. But they, just because they have Antares, they're not necessarily going to be criminal, but they can be very, very likely that they can be. If it's the chart of a woman, it's less likely, of course, because women are less inclined to that sort of thing, unless there's other signs. Like if you see Antares on MC in a woman's chart and she's got a day Mars up there as well, well, definitely she's a criminal. There's not much to be done in that situation. So yes, it's a star of extremes, definitely a star of extremes. The people with a strong Antares, they usually, again, they're not born into privilege. They make it themselves by the grace of their divine protectors and by nothing else. So and always that road to their success is difficult, is laden with many dangers, many dangers. And often they have to break the law, or they do break the law, or they get arrested, or, you know, great example is Andrew Tate, right? I think I gave this in the previous one. He's got very, very strong Antares, and he's kickboxing something or other, I don't know. So, but literally fighting, literally violence. Similar with geez. Well, actually, there's a couple of them, but Pablo Picasso, not Picasso. Actually, yeah. Wow, I didn't even mean to say that, but he does have Antares. Yes, Picasso does have Antares, but he's not who I was meaning. Pablo Escobar, two Pablos, criminal, crime, the king of the underworld. And Andrew Tate, again, you can see as well, same thing, right? He's been arrested. So that's another important thing to understand about astrology, is that when you're doing a chart reading, when I'm doing a chart reading, which when I say chart reading, I mean the birth chart. I don't mean primary directions. I don't mean a year ahead. I don't mean anything. I mean zero predictions whatsoever, just the birth chart. What we're looking at is the major themes of the person's destiny. And those themes, you know, because a lot of people, you know, they want a reading because they're in a certain situation right now in life and direction and blah, 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 whatever, and that's all good. But when you have your chart read, that's not the point. The point isn't that, okay, I'm in this situation right now, where do I go next? It's like, no, this is like big picture. To the point where a person's chart isn't going to make sense until they're dead. You know, because until you're dead, you haven't fulfilled the potential of your chart. So I hope that kind of illustrates that. So when I talk about these Antares people, I say like their path will be laden with many dangers, with many risks, with criminals, with police, with jail time, with violence, with risky travel to other countries as well. All kinds of these dangers, right? That's like the theme. That's a theme of their life, and that theme will unlock at certain periods, which show in the predictive techniques. But in terms of an actual chart reading, I'm not looking at, oh, it's always, their path is laden with dangers. Their path is always difficult and dangerous. It's like, no. It unlocks at a certain period in time. For example, my chart, Venus, Mars, this is a great example, Venus, Mars square. And I only use it, again, because it's really the only best example that I can think of off the top of my head. I have a Venus-Mars square in my chart, and Venus and Mars, whenever they come together, especially in a hard aspect, it's about infidelity, it's about affairs, it's about betrayals and love. And so I have this Venus-Mars square. Does that mean that every relationship I'm going to be in I'm going to be betrayed? Well, obviously not, because I've been in a lot of relationships and it's only happened in one. And why does it say then in the book that anybody with the Venus and the Mars in the square, their wife will be blah, 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 all these terrible things, and she'll do all these terrible things, and blah, 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 which all happen, actually. Why does it say that? It's not because that's what's always happening. It means that at some point in my life, that will happen. That is a major theme. That will be a major theme at some point. And when is that point? This is what worked so well. The exact day that this drama has happened or began was under the primary direction of, so this is a little confusing to understand. They're in a square in the natal chart. But for that square to become an exact Mundo square took a very long time, almost 20 years. But after 20 years went by primary direction, that Mundo square, this is way advanced stuff. You will have heard none of this in the contemporary astrology. In the Mundo square, which means the real sky square, or the real divisions of the sky, right? This is really complicated stuff. I'm sorry that I have to use this language, but I just want to illustrate the point, right? That there's a lot more going on here than just, Venus and Mars in the square, you're stuffed. No, Venus and Mars are in a square, so at some point, I mean, yeah, just in general, my romantic life's been a travesty, but that's because I've got Venus in the 12th and some other things too. But this Venus-Mars square is specifically about infidelity. And that activated after 17 years, when that Mundo square, and the 17 years is a very long time for a square to be fully activated, because it's a tight square too, within like a few degrees. So there's lots of reasons for that. I'll talk about that in another video. That square became activated after 17 years. And under that event, under that primary direction, which happens once in a lifetime and then it's gone, under that event, that was when my Venus and Mars activated. That was when all these travesties happened with a woman. And yeah, it was exactly like it described in the chart, that there would be police involved, there would be a third party, his wife would be disgraced, literally, or in this case, girlfriend, but the point is romantic partner, right? All of those things happen. All of those things happen. So, and that is also Venus in the 12th, that his wife would be imprisoned. That happened too. So anyway, long story there, but or his girlfriend at the time, of course, would be in prison. So I want you guys to, anybody who's watching this, because I know there's not that many of you, but anybody who's watching this, I want you guys to reconsider the way that you think about reading a chart. That when you're looking and take this knowledge with you when you read books like Firmicus Maternus or Rhetorius the Egyptian, which I recommended. That when it says, if you've got Saturn and Jupiter in opposition, when it describes the opposition, it says this causes the breaking of finances and the loss of the father's wealth and the destruction of his home or his real estate. It doesn't mean that that will always be happening forever throughout his life. It means at certain periods when that opposition is activated, which are very occasional, it's not something that happens very often, like maybe in 40 years it'll happen once, then some big problems will come because of money. There'll be a lot of loss of money, but it's not this plastered on your whole life. This is what's going on. It's like, no, at certain periods it becomes activated. Same with Antares and with the stars, right? So Regulus, he'll be famous. When? We'll be born famous? Most people aren't born famous, And usually with Regulus, it activates under the primary direction of the sun. And the primary direction of the sun, I researched that with Shia LaBeouf and Dua Lipa. I should have a look with some other people too. That has worked really, really, really well. And this little Regulus guy has his sun primary direction next year in about 18 months. Yeah, 18 months. So let's see what happens. I'm excited. So that's something really, really, really important to know. However, you need to zoom out, look at the life as a main theme. Let's take Andrew Tate, right? I literally don't know anything about him, but he's just been in the media a lot. If you zoom out and look at his life, that theme of Antares is absolutely correct. Violence, literally war or fighting, military. It's a military star under Mars in Scorpio, the sign of war. So he's extremely embedded. He's extremely linked with his whole life. He's linked with that star. And it goes up and down, right? Obviously, he's not constantly in conflict, but when it comes hard, and he goes to prison, right? Whereas, if he had Regulus or something, it wouldn't be like that. He wouldn't be in prison. He'd probably actually be quite a nice guy, but he's not, Antares can make people very sexual, very disagreeable, aggressive, and this is like worst case scenario, criminal. But despite all of that, it makes them leaders, great kings, great leaders, great people in society, in a great position in society. What else with this Antares? This is the sacred zone of willpower, the crown of Scorpio, which is actually at 7 degrees of sidereal Scorpio. So this is the crown, and this is connected with Buddhism, with meditation, with fasting, and all kinds of bodily purification, self-control. What else? Yeah, we talked about the sexuality. Scorpio is also the devil. Scorpio and Capricorn and Cancer, these are places of the devil. And Pisces as well. The water signs, very, very dark. And what that means is I can literally take a chart and look at a chart and know how spiritual is this person, at what stage of their spiritual journey are they on, and how and are they ascending or descending in this lifetime? Is the light winning or is the dark winning? I can see that. It's easy. Once you know what you're looking for, everything becomes clear. So, that being said, if somebody has a stellium in the sidereal Scorpio, there's going to be a lot of spirituality because there is a sacred zone there, but a lot of temptation, a lot of temptation, a lot of challenges, a lot of confrontations between the demons and the angels. And depending on the balance in the chart, they will either win or lose. If somebody has Antares, but maybe, let's say they have Antares rising, but the sun is on the MC. And Mars is in the 3rd house, Saturn is in the 8th house, the weak houses, but the sun is on the MC, and maybe Venus is on the descendant in the horns of Taurus. Then I know, okay, this is somebody very spiritually, much more spiritually elevated. They will have temptations in this life, some aggressions, risks, right? The themes of Antares, but they'll really, in the end, they'll have no problems whatsoever. They'll conquer all their challenges spiritually and materially, and the light will dominate because the sun is the light, right? Of course, it is subtle as well. It's not 100% that simple, but in general, that is the essence. Is the light strong or the dark strong? If it's a night chart, the dark is stronger, the demons come out. But if it's a day chart, the light is stronger. That changes depending, if somebody's a day chart but they have Mars rising, that's going to be a more demonic chart than a night chart with Jupiter rising. You know what I mean? So it's an art. You got to really know what you're doing to be able to do that, but I know what I'm doing. All right, so let's go into some examples. We'll be using Zoom. It makes things so much simpler. What is some interesting? Oh yeah, Arnie. Something. I'm just going to go through some of these famous people again and have a look because I think there were a couple. I remember for the Fomalhaut video I may have forgotten to use this one. No, it wasn't from Aldebaran. Look at this. This is the writer of Sherlock Holmes has Aldebaran on the horizon. Oh, and Fomalhaut as well. Look up here. This is Fomalhaut up here. So because he's in Edinburgh, so really, really far north, the horizon, and what is this, May? So this is midsummer, actually, okay. But because of the season and the latitude, this horizon, the horizon looks very different to what you would normally expect, because I'm not going to explain that now, it's too complicated, but because of that, this arc of the horizon, which is very unnatural, actually he has Fomalhaut rising and Aldebaran rising. But if you just had a normal chart, you would see this. The ascendant is there. You wouldn't see that he actually has Aldebaran and Fomalhaut. And that's what makes him so successful. There's some other things here as well, which are pretty interesting, but those are the main ones. So he's actually an Aldebaran kind of guy. I think Darwin, I remember, yeah, it looks like Darwin had some weird stuff. Yeah, look, Antares here with a nighttime Saturn. Wow, that's very bad. So he was not such a good guy, actually, spiritually. And you can see that his square of Saturn and Mercury in the sacred zone. And they're both in sacred zones, indicates that he is not with the angels. Let's put it that way. The the false wisdom comes through this chart, actually. The same, you see a very, very similar thing in Karl Marx, actually. I'm probably going to get like shadow banned or something just for saying those names. George Ezra, no, he doesn't mean that. Kennedy has Aldebaran. This is what I want. So we've already looked at Mr. Blunt with Fomalhaut. He has the sun and the moon in Fomalhaut, but he also has Antares on the MC and Mars on the IC. Mars on the IC is what makes foot soldiers. And if you know the story, James Blunt was in the military. He was a soldier. So you see, right, he was a soldier, and then he left the army and he followed his dream of becoming a musician, and he succeeded. But you see how at different times in his life, different parts of the chart manifest themselves. So earlier on, he is a soldier, and later on, he is a musician, Venus rising here. I think Marx had Antares as well. So you can see, they can be quite unpleasant characters, these Antares guys. Very ill-meaning. If you guys aren't into the whole reality of what's going on, if you guys think Marx and Darwin were good people, you can leave my channel. I really don't care. But you can see, look, Antares on the MC in Marx's chart. And there's much worse stuff here, much. This is very dark. This chart is one of the darkest, evilest charts I've ever seen in my entire life, actually. Let's see. Picasso has Antares with the moon in the 5th house within a few minutes. So very, very famous. Very sexual guy as well. Very, very sexual. Not much else here. Yeah, well, anyway. But yeah, you see Antares. I don't actually know much about Picasso, but it's interesting nonetheless to see that. Freud, I think, had Regulus, it looks like he's got. Not even. What do we have? Why is he so famous? You can see, look, he's got Mercury in the Pleiades. And the invisible Venus is in a parallel, which is also very dark. This makes very, very, very clever manipulators. The Pleiades are literally the demons in ancient times. Simwai, this is interesting. I was curious about this guy's chart. What would I find? And I didn't find anything that interesting. Well, he's got this Venus here, in Scorpio, maybe. I mean, he does have Moon Regulus, actually, in the same sign. This is the #1 sniper in the entire world, which is, of course, not the most pleasant thing. But you have to understand why I was curious. Because I wanted to see what's in the chart. But yeah, this is the sniper with the most kills in the world. So who was the other? Let's get. I think we're looking at Andrew Tate. Did I have his chart up? Yeah, there we go. So look at this: Sun, Moon, MC, all with Antares, and also Mars close to the ascendant. It's a very martial character. Invisible Moon means that he probably won't have kids. Or if he does, it will be very difficult. This is Saturn. I can't see Saturn anywhere. Where the heck is it? Ah, it's invisible there with the moon. Yeah, geez, definitely no kids. Oh my gosh. Definitely no kids. But yeah, so you can see the power of this star here. I mean, 3 points loaded up on the star. So clearly, he was going to be a very important person in our society, in our world, and it was going to be through Antares, through being disagreeable, aggressive, military, getting in trouble, all kinds of things. And of course, remember, you can have the character of a star influence you without the power of the star influencing you. If maybe, let's say your moon is 5 degrees away from Antares, this is still Antares, it still influences you. But the fame, the power from it is not really going to come through, but the personality will. Did Obama have something? I don't think he did. He has a weird chart. I guess because they never gave us a real birth certificate, so we shouldn't even consider that. Bill Gates. This was an interesting one. I wanted to double check. He doesn't have any royal stars, I don't think. No, he doesn't. But he's got a heliacal Venus and this powerful moon. Weird chart. I'll have to look at that another time. Bruce Lee. This is another great one. Let's have a look at what you can expect, what we're going to find. You can guess what we're going to find here. Oh, look at that. The sun rising with Antares. Oh, wow. Who would have thunk it? And not only that, Aldebaran exactly on the west horizon. So very powerful chart and martial artist, spiritual as well. Sun in the crown, Scorpio, spiritual martial artist, unlike, much less like Tate, who has that invisible moon, invisible Saturn, quite a lot of bad things actually in that crown of Scorpio, which is interesting. Let's have another look at that because I'm kind of curious now to see the comparison. Bruce Lee was such a gangster. He was so cool. Tate, he's got this new moon, invisible moon. So the invisible moon is to do with imprisonment, chains, imprisonment, infertility, problems in the family, problems for the mother, and also magic, deep magic. So maybe he's using some kind of spiritual thing here. I don't know. Maybe have some occult people behind him. Very, very likely. But this dark moon is another symbol of the devil. And I believe Escobar also had this configuration. So it means that in this chart, the devil is very strong. Whereas as you can see in Bruce Lee, it's the sun. The sun is there with Antares. And I know, look, I'm seeming probably very partisan here. But I don't mean to be. I'm just saying what I see in the chart. Yeah, and you can see, Bruce Lee's got these astrologer stars on the MC, the sun in the crown with Antares on the ascendant. So he's the sun. Whereas Andrew Tate is more like the dark moon, The Scorpio also represents the desires. So people with a strong Scorpio or strong Antares, they'll have a lot of desires, a lot of lusts. And you can see that in the character pretty easily. And when somebody has those strong Scorpio aspects, you need to analyze in them whether they are dealing with them appropriately. And if somebody's got an invisible moon in that area, they're probably not dealing with them very well. We'll look at Escobar's chart next. This is Bruce Springsteen. He has Aldebaran, kind of. It's pretty far away, though. But he has Regulus here on the IC, which is very interesting. And his is more confusing chart actually, but he's at least got this strong Regulus there. Who else? All right, so we're going to go to Pablo Escobar. Oh, or does he just have the sun? Where's his moon in the third? Okay, so he just has the sun. But you can see that what is the main dominating aspect of this chart? There's this sun with Antares. So again, this devil is very strong. But Mars and Saturn are in this conjunction here, also defining the chart. So, he wasn't actually a terrible person on the inside, but what dominated in him was not so good. Mars and Saturn, Antares, curious, very, very curious. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm sure there's plenty more examples because I don't know why, but a lot of famous people have this Antares. Yeah, I'm not really sure why. It's a curious thing. Again, I would say it's just, with the Aldebaran, right, that's usually the money. They're usually very wealthy, so they're not necessarily famous. Whereas Antares, more likely that they're just well known. So, some interesting questions to be answered there about Antares. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there. I'm getting a bit tired, and I'll see you guys in the next one.